Captain Elias Mercer had faced countless dangers across the galaxy. He had survived starship crashes, alien ambushes, and wars that spanned planets. Yet nothing in his life prepared him for the moment he first saw Kaylara. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered like polished copper, catching the soft light of Trevora 9's twin suns. Her eyes, a mix of gold and green, were so bright and alive that they seemed to look straight into a person's soul, and her smile, gentle, knowing, and yet strong, made something in Elias stir that he hadn't felt in years. Something tender, something he didn't dare name. Elias had come to Trevora 9 for a simple mission, or at least it was supposed to be simple. The Zephyrians were known across the galaxy as proud, disciplined, and distant. Diplomacy was always cautious, measured. But Kaylara, she was different. She did not hide behind her formalities. She stepped forward boldly when she approached the human delegation, her head held high, her every movement confident. "I am Kaylara," she said, her voice light and melodic, like the sound of wind through glass. "I will be your guide." Elias swallowed, startled at how something so simple could feel so intense. "Captain Elias Mercer," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's an honor to meet you." Kaylara's eyes sparkled as she looked at him, and for a moment the human felt like the universe had narrowed to just the two of them. Every word she spoke, every gesture seemed to pull him closer, even though he knew he shouldn't be so drawn. Over the next few days, Elias found himself observing Kaylara constantly. She moved through the palace halls with grace, talking to other Zephyrians with authority, yet she always seemed aware of him, as if she could sense where he stood even from across the room. She laughed at his awkward attempts to learn Zephyrian language and customs, sometimes shaking her head in amusement, and he could not help but smile in return, feeling lighter than he had in years. He noticed the little things about her, how she would tilt her head slightly when thinking, how her fingers brushed the edge of ancient Zephyrian artifacts with reverence, how she would pause at the rivers to watch the twin suns melt into the horizon. Each moment with her felt like discovering a new world, and every glance left him breathless. And yet Elias knew the truth. She was not human, and he could never simply speak what he felt. Between humans and Zephyrians there were boundaries as vast as the stars. Protocol, duty, and centuries of cultural separation made him hesitate. But his heart did not care for rules or reason. One evening, as the suns dipped low and the sky painted itself in shades of red and orange, Elias found himself standing beside Kaylara near the river. The wind played in her hair, lifting the strands like golden threads. She spoke softly about Zephyrian traditions, about the stories of her people, and Elias listened, enchanted, and then, without thinking, without intending to speak aloud, he whispered, barely moving his lips, "I wish she was my wife." The words hung in the air, fragile and secret. They were a truth he could never fully admit, a hope that was impossible and beautiful all at once. He felt his chest tighten, knowing she could not possibly hear him, or so he thought. Kaylara, meanwhile, paused mid-story. She tilted her head, her gaze meeting his with something that made his heart skip. There was a softness in her eyes, a recognition, a curiosity. Elias swallowed hard, the unspoken tension between them growing heavier with every passing second. He did not know it yet, but the small whisper he thought was lost to the wind would change everything. And as he looked at her, the human soldier realized something he hadn't felt in decades. Hope. A fragile, terrifying hope that perhaps, just perhaps, the impossible could become reality. Elias turned away first, hiding his flushed face and the way his heart raced, thinking he had been foolish. But somewhere deep inside, he knew the story between him and Kaylara had already begun, and that whisper, small and trembling, would echo far longer than he could imagine. The following days on Trevora 9 were filled with routine meetings, formalities, and endless discussions about alliances. Yet amidst the political talks and alien protocols, Elias found himself searching for Kaylara at every turn. Each encounter with her made the galaxy feel smaller, as if the universe had conspired to bring two unlikely hearts together. Kaylara, for her part, seemed to notice him more than anyone else. She would greet him with a small, almost mischievous smile, as if daring him to step closer into her world. And Elias, despite the caution drilled into him by decades of war and discipline, could not resist. Every time she laughed, he felt warmth spread through his chest, a reminder that even in the harshness of space, there were moments of beauty that made life worth living. One afternoon, Kaylara invited him to explore the Zephyrian archives, a vast hall of history carved into crystalline walls that glimmered like stars. Humans were usually not allowed here, but Kaylara had a way of bending rules with charm and authority. "This place holds the stories of my people," she said softly, her fingers brushing across the glowing inscriptions. "It is sacred." Elias watched her with admiration. He had seen great leaders, but none moved with the quiet power that Kaylara possessed. Her devotion to her culture, her intelligence, and her grace captivated him. "It's incredible," he murmured. "You make it feel alive." She looked at him then, eyes locking with his, and for a heartbeat the universe seemed to pause. "Humans often rush through life," she said gently. "They forget to see it." Elias felt a lump in his throat. She understood him in ways no one ever had. No one had ever seen the lonely soldier beneath the armor, the man who had survived battles that had taken the lives of hundreds of friends. And yet here she was, seeing him, not the human soldier, not the diplomat, but Elias. As they walked through the halls, he found himself speaking more freely than he had in years. He told her about the stars he had seen, the worlds he had saved, and even the fears he carried. Kaylara listened patiently, never judging, her eyes encouraging him to continue. But with every shared smile, every quiet glance, Elias felt the weight of reality pressing down on him. He was human. She was Zephyrian. Their worlds were not meant to mix. His heart wanted to reach out, to confess that small wish he had whispered by the riverside, the wish that she could be his, in every sense. But the fear of rejection and cultural impossibility held him back. That evening, they found themselves on a balcony overlooking the city lights. Trevora 9's twin moons reflected on the river below, casting silver trails across the water. Kaylara leaned slightly against the railing and Elias stood beside her, the tension between them almost tangible. "It's beautiful," he said softly, voice low, almost unreal. Kaylara smiled faintly. "Some things in life are meant to be seen and cherished even if they seem impossible." Elias's heart pounded. Her words, gentle and profound, stirred a dangerous hope within him. He wanted to tell her everything, his wish, his longing, his fear, but he didn't know if he could. So he stayed silent, letting the moment speak instead. Then unexpectedly, Kaylara turned to him. "Elias," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I know you're different from other humans. I see it, your courage, your heart. It's rare." The words hit him harder than any enemy's weapon ever could. He felt exposed, vulnerable, yet elated. No one had ever seen him like this, and yet she did. And in that moment he realized something terrifying and beautiful. Maybe the impossible wasn't so impossible after all. They stood in silence, the two of them looking at the moons, at the river, at each other. Elias felt the weight of his unspoken wish more strongly than ever, the longing building almost unbearable, and yet he sensed that Kaylara, in her quiet way, might feel it too. As night settled over Trevora 9, Elias wondered if there could ever be a place for a human like him in a world so different, so alien. But one thing was certain, he could not turn away from Kaylara. Not now, not ever. She had touched something inside him that no battle, no starship, no galaxy could ever erase. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The days after their quiet evening on the balcony felt like walking on a delicate thread. Elias tried to focus on his mission, on the diplomatic talks and technical inspections, but Kaylara lingered in every corner of his mind. Every time she smiled, every time her gaze met his chest tightened. That whispered wish he had thought lost, the wish that she could be his, burned quietly inside him, growing stronger with each passing moment. But the universe, it seemed, was never so simple. One morning, the Zephyrian Council called an emergency meeting. Reports of a rogue faction planning an attack on the human delegation reached the palace, and tensions rose like storm clouds. Elias was assigned extra security duties, his hand on his weapon even during meetings. Kailara, calm as ever, oversaw the preparations, but Elias noticed her eyes flicker with concern. Something about the situation disturbed her deeply, and that subtle fear shook him more than any enemy could. They were walking through the crystal corridors later that day when Kailara stopped abruptly. "Elias," she said, voice serious, "this faction, they are unpredictable. If they strike, I cannot guarantee safety even for you." Elias felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "Then we prepare. We do what we always do. Humans adapt. We survive." Kailara's gaze softened, and for a brief moment the tension lifted. "Your courage is remarkable, but it scares me too. You do not understand the danger here. Not fully." He wanted to reach for her hand, to reassure her that he would not falter, but he hesitated. There was a chasm between them, between her world and his, that no human bravery could bridge completely. And yet, the thought of losing her, of seeing her in danger and being unable to protect her, struck him harder than any battle wound ever could. That evening, the first warning came. Alarms blared across the city. Elias and Kailara rushed toward the palace courtyard, joining a group of Zephyrian guards and human officers. The rogue faction had arrived, their ships descending like dark shadows over Trevora IX's sparkling rivers. The first volley of energy blasts tore through the air, sending sparks and debris everywhere. Elias fought with precision, every movement honed by years of training. But he could not ignore the sight of Kailara amidst the chaos, directing the Zephyrians with calm authority, even as danger rained down around them. His heart ached, partly with admiration, partly with fear. He wanted to shout at her to take cover, but he knew she never would. She would stand, fearless, until the last threat was neutralized. In the heat of battle, Elias noticed a rogue fighter breaking through the defenses, heading straight for Kailara. Time seemed to slow. He lunged, tackling the assailant, his weapon firing with deadly accuracy. The explosion sent him sprawling, dust and energy sparks filling the air. Kailara looked at him, her eyes wide for the first time, and in that fleeting moment Elias whispered, "Stay alive, please." She smiled, a brief flicker of warmth in the chaos, and ducked behind cover. He saw the admiration and something more, a connection that went beyond words, beyond worlds, beyond reason. But the danger wasn't over. Elias knew that the rogue faction would not give up easily, and the city was still under threat. When the dust settled hours later, the attackers had been repelled, but the tension lingered. Both human and Zephyrian casualties had been light, yet the emotional weight pressed heavily on Elias. He helped Kailara steady herself, her hands trembling slightly as she surveyed the aftermath. "You're reckless," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper, though the storm of battle had just passed. "And you're fearless," he replied, a faint smile on his bloodied lips. "Together, maybe we're unstoppable." Kailara met his gaze then, her eyes searching his. For a long moment neither spoke. The unspoken wish, the hope, the longing, the desire, hung between them like a fragile bridge over a vast void. Elias wanted to speak it aloud, to tell her that the words he had whispered by the riverside were still true, that he still wished she could be his. But fear, the fear of losing her or being laughed at by the universe, kept him silent. Still, as she turned away, brushing her hair from her face, he knew something profound had shifted. Danger had brought them closer. Battle had revealed hearts. And despite the odds, despite the differences between human and Zephyrian, Elias understood a truth that burned brighter than the stars. Love. Real, unguarded, fearless love, could exist even in the vastness of the galaxy, and for the first time, he wondered if she might feel it too. The city of Trevora 9 slowly returned to calm. The echoes of battle still lingered in the air. The singed walls, the shattered glass, the faint smell of burnt energy. Elias walked alongside Kailara through the palace gardens, where the twin moons reflected softly on the still waters of the river. The night was quiet, almost too quiet, and it made every heartbeat feel louder. Kailara walked with a careful grace, but Elias noticed her tension. Even after the battle, her hands shook slightly as she brushed leaves from the paths, and her golden green eyes kept scanning the horizon, as if expecting danger to return. He wanted to reach out to hold her hand and promise that he would keep her safe, but he hesitated. There were boundaries he could not cross, not yet. "Elias," she finally said, her voice soft and almost hesitant. "You risked your life today. I should have told you to stay back, but I didn't. You are reckless for a human. And yet," she paused, searching his face, "and yet I am grateful." Elias smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and something deeper stirring inside him. Humans are like that. We fight, we survive, and sometimes we hope, even when hope seems impossible. Kailara glanced at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. She seemed to understand something unspoken, something that Elias had buried deep within. His heart raced, and for the first time he felt brave enough to speak what he had only whispered to the wind before. He leaned slightly closer, voice barely audible. I wish you were my wife." The words hung in the air between them. Elias's stomach tightened, unsure if he had just ruined everything with a foolish confession. He braced himself, expecting surprise, confusion, or even rejection. Then Kailara turned to face him fully. Her eyes widened, but there was no anger, no mockery. Instead, there was a spark of something else, something warm, honest and alive. "I heard that, human," she said, her voice soft yet steady. Her words made his heart leap. "I heard it." Elias blinked, unable to believe it. You did?" Kailara nodded, stepping closer. The silver moonlight reflected on her copper-toned skin, making her look ethereal, almost unreal. "I heard your heart speak, even when you thought it was secret. You do not hide it well." A laugh escaped Elias, shaky but full of relief. He felt weight lifting off his chest, decades of fear, doubt, and restraint melting away. "Then it's not impossible? You might feel the same." Kailara's lips curved into a gentle smile. "I do not know what the future holds. Our worlds are different, humans and Zephyrians. It is not simple. But in this moment here with you, I feel something I cannot ignore." His chest swelled with emotion, the kind he had only ever read about in books or felt in fleeting dreams. For the first time, he did not have to hide who he was. The soldier, the human, the man who had survived countless battles, could finally be himself. They walked together along the riverbank, side by side, the silence between them comfortable, filled with unspoken promises. Elias reached for her hand, trembling slightly, and Kailara did not pull away. Their fingers intertwined, the warmth of contact sending electricity through him stronger than any weapon he had ever held. "Elias," she whispered, her voice blending with the gentle flow of the river. "What we feel, it is dangerous, but perhaps in danger we are strongest." Elias nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "Then we face it together. Humans survive the impossible, and I will survive anything as long as I am with you." For the first time, they allowed themselves to be completely honest, completely vulnerable. The galaxy beyond the garden walls, the wars, the politics, all faded for a moment. There was only this, only two hearts reaching across the stars, daring to believe in something impossible. The night stretched on, their shadows merging under the twin moons. Elias had never felt so alive, so human, so ready to fight not just for survival but for love. Kailara had never felt such a pull, such a connection that defied logic and duty, and though they knew challenges awaited them, Alien politics, societal boundaries, the vast differences of their worlds. They also knew this. Something rare and extraordinary had begun, and sometimes that was enough. The days following Elias's whispered confession were filled with a new fragile hope. He and Kaylara moved through the palace corridors side by side, a quiet closeness that neither could ignore. Every glance, every touch, every shared smile deepened the bond between them. Yet the galaxy had a way of testing even the strongest hearts. News arrived that a neighboring system, wary of human Zephyrian cooperation, had sent a delegation to challenge the new alliance. Their arrival brought tension, suspicion, and subtle threats. The council expected Kaylara to handle it with her usual poise, but Elias noticed a shadow cross her face more than once. For all her strength, she carried a heavy burden, the responsibility of protecting her people, her world, and now, indirectly, him. Elias understood that he could not be reckless. Not this time. The human bravery he had always relied upon needed to be tempered with care, and he had to remember that Kaylara's world was far more complicated than his own. Still, when he watched her work tirelessly to keep peace, his admiration and affection grew. He wanted to tell her that he would do anything to stand by her, to protect her, to make her feel safe, no matter the cost. One evening, Kaylara invited him to the palace observatory, a dome of transparent crystal overlooking the night sky. Stars stretched endlessly above them, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the smallness of their problems, yet also of their beauty. "This is where I come when I need to think," she said softly, her fingers tracing the edge of the dome. "The stars? They remind me that there is more than duty, more than fear." Elias took a deep breath, feeling the weight of both words in silence. "And do you ever allow yourself to hope?" he asked. Kaylara turned to him, her eyes reflecting starlight, a mixture of strength and vulnerability. "I do," she admitted, "but hope can be dangerous. It makes the heart fragile." His heart ached at her words, knowing exactly how she felt. "Then let it be dangerous," he whispered, "because sometimes the things worth fighting for are worth the risk." She studied him, and for a long moment neither spoke. Then, without warning, a message arrived, a warning that the delegation outside was planning a violent demonstration against human presence. Tension cracked the observatory's serenity. Kaylara's jaw tightened, and Elias felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. "We cannot let this escalate," Kaylara said, her voice steady despite the urgency. "They will try to make us appear weak." Elias nodded, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll face it together. Humans survive the impossible, remember?" Kaylara's lips curved in a fleeting, approving smile. Yet the moment of connection was broken by reality. The next day, the delegation staged a public challenge in the city plaza. Aliens gathered, and humans were instructed to stand guard. Elias and Kaylara moved through the tense crowd, aware of the weight of every gaze upon them. When the confrontation began, Elias found himself at Kaylara's side, moving with precision and calm. His human instincts complemented her Zephyrian strategy, their teamwork seamless despite the differences in culture and method. But amid the conflict, he could not ignore the fear for her. Every risk she took, every subtle command she gave under pressure, made him realize just how much he cared, more than he had ever thought possible. Later, when the plaza was cleared and peace restored, Elias and Kaylara retreated to the gardens. Exhausted, their bodies leaning close, he finally spoke the words he had kept inside. "You are extraordinary," he said, voice thick with emotion, "not just as a leader, not just as Kaylara, but as someone I cannot imagine being without." Kaylara's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability showing in her expression. "Elias, you are human, yet you see me. Not the leader, not the Zephyrian protocols, just me. It is rare." He reached for her hand, intertwining fingers once more. "Then we face everything. Together. Against the galaxy, against rules, against whatever tries to keep us apart. Because I choose you." Kaylara's breath caught, her gaze dropping for a brief moment before she lifted it again. "Then I choose you too," she whispered. For a heartbeat, the universe itself seemed to pause. The stars above shone brighter. The twin moons reflected perfectly in the river below, and two hearts, human and Zephyrian, beat in unison. They knew trials would come. They knew danger was never far, yet in that moment nothing else mattered. Love, fragile and bold, had taken root, and sometimes that was enough to face the impossible. The days after the plaza incident felt heavy with tension. Though Elias and Kalara had admitted their feelings, the galaxy seemed determined to test them. Whispers of dissent among the Zephyrians, political schemes from neighboring systems, and rumors of a hidden threat to the human delegation made every step feel like walking on fragile ice. Kalara moved through it all with grace, maintaining her composure, yet Elias could see the strain behind her golden-green eyes. She rarely spoke of her worries, but he noticed the subtle tightening of her jaw, the way her hands trembled when she thought no one was watching. Elias wanted to reach out, to protect her, to shoulder the burden for her, but he also knew she needed him as an equal, not just as a shield. Humans survive by confronting the impossible, by trusting in their own resilience, and Elias wanted Kalara to know he was steadfast, not just in love but in strength. One evening, the council summoned them both to an emergency session. A message had arrived from a Zephyrian intelligence officer. A covert faction within the council intended to undermine the alliance, claiming humans were untrustworthy. Kalara's face paled as she read the report. "They think I cannot see through their lies," she said quietly, almost to herself. "They think they can manipulate the council against us." Elias put a hand gently on her arm. "Then we prove them wrong. Together." The council chamber was cold and formal, a place where words could wound sharper than weapons. As Kalara spoke, explaining the situation, Elias watched her courage shine. She addressed accusations with logic and calm, her voice unwavering even as council members cast suspicious glances at the humans present. Yet one voice stood out. Councillor Rethus, a senior member whose eyes glimmered with doubt. "And what guarantee do we have that humans will not betray us?" he demanded. "We have seen their history. They act impulsively." Elias stepped forward, his voice strong and clear. "Yes, humans act decisively, but not without purpose. We survive. We protect. We fight for those who cannot defend themselves. And I fight for her. If that means defending this alliance and her people, then I swear we will not fail." The room fell silent. Kalara looked at him, a mix of surprise and admiration in her gaze. For the first time, the council saw not just a human soldier, but someone with courage, heart, and loyalty that transcended culture or species. Later, as they left the chamber, Kalara's hand found his. "You risked so much," she whispered. "Not just in battle, but here for me. For us." Elias smiled faintly, squeezing her hand. "I choose you, Kalara. Every day, against anyone, against everything, and I will keep choosing you." Her eyes shimmered with emotion. "Then I choose you too," she said again, her voice stronger now, a declaration to herself and the universe. But trust was only one part of their journey. That night, as they walked along the riverbank, a sudden commotion shattered the quiet. Shadows moved in the gardens, masked figures attempting to abduct Kalara. Elias reacted instantly, moving with the precision of a soldier, his weapon trained and ready. Kalara didn't panic. Instead, she assessed the threat calmly, her hands poised to act. Together, they fought with a synchronicity that surprised even them. Elias deflected attacks while Kalara used her Zephyrian agility and skill, their movements fluid, seamless, as if they were extensions of each other. When the attackers were finally subdued, Elias held Kalara close, his heart pounding. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice trembling with relief and adrenaline. Kalara leaned into him, breathless, her eyes shining. "Yes, because you were here. Because you never let go." In that moment, everything became clear to Elias. The galaxy could throw dangers, politics, and enemies at them, but nothing could break the bond they had forged. Not distance, not culture, not even fear. They had survived the impossible before, and now their love itself had become a source of strength. As the twin moons reflected in the river, Elias whispered softly, almost to himself, "I will protect you, always, no matter what." Kalara smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And I will stand with you. Together, human." For the first time in their lives, both human and Zephyrian felt truly unshakable. They had been tested, they had faced danger, and they had come out stronger, not just as individuals, but as partners bound by courage, trust, and love. And though the galaxy still held many challenges, neither Elias nor Kalara doubted this. Whatever the future held, they would face it together. The galaxy seemed quieter after the attacks, the conspiracies and the rogue factions. Yet for Elias and Kalara, the peace was fragile. The council remained cautious, neighboring systems wary, and the scars of recent threats were still visible. Still, Elias felt a confidence he had never known before. They had survived danger, political intrigue, and cultural divides. And now they faced the ultimate choice, whether to embrace the impossible fully. That evening, Kalara invited Elias to the riverbank once more. The twin moons shimmered on the water, casting silver reflections across the garden. The soft breeze carried the scent of night flowers, and the world felt still, as if it were holding its breath for what was about to happen. Elias took her hand gently, feeling the warmth and strength in her touch. "Kalara," he said softly, "we've faced the impossible before. I've risked everything for you, but I need to ask something now, something that is far greater than danger or politics." Kalara looked at him, curiosity and concern blending in her golden green eyes. "What is it, Elias?" He took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "I know we come from different worlds, different species, but my heart has never been more certain. Kalara, I want to spend my life with you. Will you be my wife?" For a moment, silence held them. The air seemed to shimmer with anticipation. Kalara's eyes widened, and then slowly a smile broke across her face, a smile that was bright, fearless, and full of love. I heard that once before," she said softly, almost laughing at the memory, "when you whispered it by the river." Her voice trembled, yet it carried strength. "And now, I say yes. I choose you, human, not because it is simple, not because it is easy, but because my heart cannot choose otherwise." Elias's chest felt like it might burst with joy. He pulled her into a tight embrace, careful not to let go, feeling her warmth, her heartbeat, the reality of her presence. "I promise," he whispered, "to protect you, to stand by you, to face the galaxy with you. Every danger, every challenge, we face together." Kalara rested her head against his shoulder, eyes closed, letting the weight of her decision settle. "And I promise," she replied, "to be with you, to share all that I am, all that I hope to be, human or Zephyrian. Together we are stronger than the stars themselves." For the first time, Elias felt a peace he had never known. The wars, the missions, the battles, they were all behind him. Here, under twin moons beside the river, he found something worth more than victory, more than survival. He found love, pure, fearless, and unwavering. The days that followed were filled with small joys. Humans and Zephyrians alike watched as the bond between Elias and Kalara became a symbol of hope. Children laughed, diplomats relaxed, and even counselors who had doubted the alliance began to see the possibility of unity. The human soldier who had survived countless wars now became a symbol, not just of strength, but of the power of the human heart. Elias and Kalara spent evenings walking the rivers, studying the stars, talking of dreams that spanned worlds. Every touch, every smile, every whispered word became a thread weaving them closer together. Even when political tensions flared or the galaxy reminded them that danger never truly left, they faced it side by side. One night, Elias looked at Kaelara under the soft moonlight and whispered, "Do you remember the first time I said I wished you were my wife?" Kaelara smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "I heard it, and I hoped that one day you would ask me properly." He laughed softly, feeling the years of longing, fear, and hope settle into a warm glow. "I always hoped you would say yes." And she did. In that moment, human and Zephyrian hearts beat as one. Against the odds, against the galaxy's vastness, they had found something that transcended species, politics, and fear. They had found each other, and sometimes Elias thought that was the greatest victory of all. Together they turned toward the river, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the universe had in store. The stars above them shone brightly, as if celebrating a love that no force, no distance, and no challenge could ever extinguish. Human and Zephyrian, soldier and leader, heart and heart, they had proven that love, courage, and hope could survive the impossible. And in the quiet of Trivora IX's night, against the stars and the twin moons, they were finally home.